Welcome back to Auto Vista, the place where steel, history, and horsepower meet. Today, we're turning back the clock and diving into a true classic of American grit, the 1989 Ford F-100 4X4. A truck that doesn't just stand as a piece of machinery, but as a symbol of a rugged era when vehicles were built tough, simple, and purposeful. This isn't just a trip down memory lane. It's a tribute to a workhorse that carried generations of Americans across fields, job sites, and back roads. Buckle up, this is going to be a ride worth remembering. Let's start with the basics. The 1989 Ford F-100 marked one of the final chapters in a legendary nameplate. Though by this time the F-150 had taken over as Ford's flagship half-ton, the F-100 still had its loyal fanbase. And for good reason. It blended classic Ford styling with practical performance, and in the 4X4 variant, it delivered solid off-road capability that made it a favorite among rural drivers, off-roaders, and anyone who needed a dependable truck that could take a beating and come back for more. Under the hood, the '89 F-100 came with several engine options, but the most iconic, and arguably the most reliable, was the 4.9-liter inline-six. Known as the 300 straight six, this engine was an absolute torque monster at low RPMs, making it ideal for towing, hauling, or crawling through muddy trails. It didn't scream power with big numbers on paper, but ask any old-school Ford mechanic and they'll tell you, the 300 inline-six could run forever if you just changed the oil and didn't beat on it too hard. The V8 options, like the 5.0-liter and 5.8-liter, offered more top-end power, and they were great too. But that inline-six had a cult following for a reason. The 4X4 drivetrain on the 1989 F-100 used a part-time, shift-on-the-flight transfer case, usually the Borg Warner 1345. Paired with locking hubs up front, it gave drivers true control over when to engage four-wheel drive. No electronics, no nonsense, just a solid manual lever and mechanical systems that worked. That's the kind of control off-road enthusiasts love. You feel connected to the vehicle, like you're part of the machine, not just along for the ride. The transmission options included a 4-speed manual and a 4-speed automatic with overdrive. And let me tell you, if you find one of these trucks today with the manual gearbox still intact, you've found a gem. It's one of those gearboxes that clunks in a satisfying way, like it's saying, "Yeah, I'm ready to go," every time you shift into first. Styling-wise, the 1989 F-100 is unmistakably 80s Ford. It was the last year of the 7th-generation F-Series, and it carried a design that was clean, boxy, and utilitarian. The front grille had a no-nonsense horizontal bar look, flanked by rectangular headlights that seemed to glare at you like they meant business. The body lines were simple and purposeful, giving the truck a squared-off, muscular stance that looked just as at home on a farm as it did cruising down Main Street. Inside the cab, things were just as straightforward. Don't expect leather trim or touchscreen navigation. What you got was a bench seat, sometimes vinyl, sometimes cloth, a big steering wheel, analog gauges, and basic HVAC controls. But here's the thing, it was comfortable. It was honest. You didn't have to scroll through a million menus to find your radio station or change the heat. Everything was where it needed to be. And for a truck built in 1989, it had enough interior room to stretch out, especially in the regular cab long bed variant. Driving the F-100 4X4 is a different experience than today's trucks. It feels heavier. The steering has a bit of play, the suspension lets you know what's happening under the wheels, and the engine talks to you through the floorboards and the firewall. But that's exactly what makes it special. You don't feel insulated from the road, you feel like you're part of it. Every bump, every gear change, every throttle input, it's all raw and mechanical, and that's what makes it fun. The ride quality wasn't plush, but it was surprisingly decent for a truck riding on leaf springs. And because of its higher stance and four-wheel drive setup, it had great ground clearance and approach angles. Whether you were crawling over rocks or just trying to get through a snowy driveway, the 1989 F-100 4X4 didn't hesitate. It just went. Now, let's talk about reliability and maintenance. This truck was built before the age of complex electronics and computer-controlled everything. Which means working on it was, and still is, a dream for backyard mechanics. Everything under the hood is accessible, most parts are still widely available, and there's a massive community of enthusiasts who can offer advice, sell you parts, or even help restore one. From carburetor rebuilds to simple suspension swaps, this is a truck that invites you to roll up your sleeves.